Not too long ago, I was at home with my two girls going through some scrapbooks, and one of them said, "You know, Mom, you need to write the history of our family. We don't know these people. We don't even know who they were." And I began to think about my childhood in Tuxedo Park and what an incredible life we had.
This is the story of Tuxedo Park in a bygone era of Buckhead, a small suburb north of the city of Atlanta, Georgia, 1911 to today, and of those people who created homes that have become more beautiful with the passing years.
My grandfather was Charles H. Black Sr., and he was such a wonderful man. I loved him, and he loved life, and I always knew that he loved me.
He took great pride in telling his version of the acquisition of 600 acres north of Atlanta. He had lost a large sum of money in the Florida real estate market and returned to Atlanta in 1911.
And he borrowed a Cadillac automobile and a chauffeur. And he went and got his banker friend and took him to ride and borrowed the money to purchase 600 acres, which was a little bit north of Atlanta. And he lived on that 600 acres all of his life. And the 600 acres became Tuxedo Park.
The parcel of land started at the site of the governor's mansion, shown on the original plat as the property of Robert Maddox. Charles Harmon Black, Jr. began his building career in 1923. He had married Theodora Sherrod Owens that same year and elected to build a rather large Tudor home to be representative of the product that he could build for subsequent clients. He chose Daniel Bodine of the firm of Fraser and Bodine to provide the architectural plans. William Monroe Sr. of Monroe's Landscaping and Nursery Company joined the team to complete what was to become a long and successful network of talent, workmanship, and endless attention to detail that produced the elegance and beauty that are still attracting admiring visitors every day.
In 1928, my father built a home next door to his own home for his friend and golfing partner, Robert T. Bobby Jones, Jr., shown here with my grandfather and his wife, Nina Black. In the mid-1940s, the Jones and the Blacks became related by marriage when Bobby's daughter, Clara, married my grandfather's youngest son, William Harmon Black II.
In 1939, the Jones family moved from Northside Drive to Whitehall on Tuxedo Road. This home was designed by Philip Schutze and built by Charles Black, Jr. Whitehall was selected to be the decorator show house in 1991.
My grandfather's love for horses prompted the development of the Tuxedo Hunt Club. He constructed stables, a riding ring, and a clubhouse, a fashionable equestrian facility for his family and friends to enjoy their love of horses and to create a social headquarters for his prospective buyers of horses and houses. Trail rides, horse shows, and Saturday morning brunches were an important part of life for the entire family. I had friends that I rode with every Saturday morning, and one of the highlights of our whole week was to hook the ponies up to pony carts, and we would drive down Blackland Road and drive into Buckhead in the pony carts, tie the ponies up behind the grocery store, and go to the Buckhead Theater, spend the afternoon at the movies, go back, unhook the ponies, get in the buggy cart, ride back down Roswell Road, ride back down to the Tuxedo Hunt Club. Today that is hard for anyone to believe that story, but it is true. My love for horses and white fences started at a very early age at my grandfather's Tuxedo Hunt Club.
The young builder's next project was to build a home for his father. Montevella was built on 25 acres of land bounded by Northside Drive as the columned entrance and Tuxedo Road as the back driveway. This elliptical sash opening is supported by hand-carved corbels. The small true radius interior windows provide light and shadows. This home was destroyed by fire in the summer of 1947. Today, the entry piers on Northside Drive are all that remain of the Charles Black Sr. home. Robert Winship Woodruff of Coca-Cola fame purchased Wincroft, which had been built for Charles H. King by Charles H. Black, Jr. in 1937. This home was designed by Fraser and Bodine and landscaped by Monroe's. The architecture was strongly influenced by the Georgian and Greek Revival Renaissance periods. Mr. Woodruff willed the estate to his beloved niece, Nell Watt, and a few years later the home was purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Guy Milner. Wincroft was the 1990 Decorator Show House. These embellishments in the cornice moldings were carved by hand. The Nunley family was one with whom the Black family had a long and treasured relationship. The Nunleys and the Blacks became related by marriage when Mrs. Theodora Owens, the mother of Mrs. Charles Black, Jr., became Mrs. Charles T. Nunley, Sr. in 1924. Mrs. Owens was the widow of Frank C. Owens, Sr. Both Charles B. Nunley and Hugh Nunley had homes built by the team of Black, Bodine, and Monroe. The Charles B. Nunley home was built for Charles and his wife Catherine in 1933. This majestic, free-flying stairway is detailed with applied putty molding. The window in Catherine Nunley's art studio represents authentic Palladianism, as described by the 16th century Italian architect Andrea Palladio.
This was a home and garden and yard that I was particularly proud of.
William Monroe, Jr. has carried on the Monroe landscaping tradition.
All the stonework you see, we did for them. This is probably one of the best examples of a cobblestone courtyard that I know of. This was a garden that Ms. Nunley enjoyed. Beautiful fountain, and one of her favorite places for entertaining. And now I'd like to introduce my son, William, formally, William III. Let him tell you a little bit about his activities.
Well, this is the third straight year that I will be doing the decorator show house for the Atlanta Symphony. And this year, I'm happy to say it will be in Tuxedo Park at the Azalea House. And I've designed a little garden area that I think is quite special and quite in keeping with both my grandfather and father's design traditions, because I feel that they have started something and I'm hopefully gonna maintain the tradition.
Aunt Catherine Nunley was an artist, and she had gotten tired of the dark cherry room and decided that she was going to lighten the color. And in order to do that, she painted it white, took a stippled brush, and while the paint was still wet, she would go up and down with the paint to make the wood grain marks. And she would allow that paint to dry for a week or 10 days, and then the painters would come back in and rub it with umber, and the finish was just gorgeous. And once the room is done in this manner, it is more beautiful as time goes on.
Probably the most photographed house in Atlanta, if not the country, is the Hugh Nunley house, which you will visit. And I can distinctly remember many days, those mules and those drag pans working their head off to grade that yard, which is really a gorgeous yard.
In 1937, Charles Black Jr. and Associates built a home for Hugh Nunley and his wife, Mary Lee. Charles Black Sr. was very fond of Mary Lee and delighted in offering her the pick of the lots in his Tuxedo Park.
On today's market, it would be very difficult to get this type workmanship. But I guess somewhere there's somebody that can do it.
The original home was completed at a cost of $20,000. Several years after the death of his wife in 1967, Charles Black Jr. married Mary Lee Nunley, who had been a widow for 15 years, and they resided in the former Nunley home.
It would be almost impossible for me to really describe in words the relationship that I had with my father, but it was wonderful. And the memories today of my grandfather and my father and my Uncle Dave and Billy Black. I'm a very, very blessed person to have had the family that I have had and to have had the life that I had, and to have been brought up in Tuxedo Park was such a special, special thing in my life.
The wind blows where it wills, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know whence it comes or whither it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. A man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven.
Dawn breaks and the man awakes, and a deep felt vision is seen. Through the burning desire to reach ever higher, to realize his hopes and his dreams in his own time and in his own way, with passion to reach the goal. He steps toward the sun he's already won,